Food is arguably the most important resource in Age of Empires 2, but all we see in game is just a single set of numbers. Throughout this series, we will be looking at exactly what foods each civilization prepared and ate, and how well I can recreate those dishes. This is Meals of Empires. Thank you, Basil. Appreciate your service. You can go back up in the scenery. I put the date for Italians from 568 to 1861. 568 is when a Germanic tribe arrived into Italy following the whole Western Roman Empire collapse, that I'm sure you're all familiar with from your history. And then 1861 is when Italy formed into a full country. It was all unified. But you have different ingredients that are coming in from the different civilizations that invade Italy. And then the actual food hasn't changed all that much from what it was back then to what it is now. Refrigeration and different cooking techniques have evolved, but the principal foods haven't changed much. Italian cuisine has a lot, hasn't really. I guess there's tomatoes. The tomatoes is a pretty big one. I kind of forgot about that. Tomato sauce is like marinara sauce, just quintessential Italian at this point. But we're gonna remember that tomatoes are limited to the Americas for this series, and so we are going to be relying on a different sauce. The sauce would be oil and dairy and nut based, so you have pine nuts, which will be our nut component for today. Our oil is olive oil, and the dairy is Parmesan from my girlfriend. I think that concludes the history, so we can jump on in. So pesto is pretty straightforward. We have pine nuts, or pijnboompita, as it is in Dutch. So these are from actual pine cones, and I have found some pine cones out to give a little demonstration. And hopefully the GoPro's in focus, but if not. So here's, a pine cone that's fully open. All the scales have kind of warped themselves outwards. And at the back end of the scale, where I just pulled it out, there's normally two little pits, though these are pretty small pine cones. Let me see if I can find a scale that makes this a little bit more obvious. And that's where the pine nut would sit, at the back of these pits. But they kind of just break off. It's hard to see. You're just going to have to believe me. But anyways, the pine cone, when it's still on the tree, all the scales are close together in a nice pattern, and then they open up and let the seeds fall out. And that's what people would be able to collect. And they could open the pine cone either like I'm doing by forcing it open, or you put it over some heat, like a fire, and the scales will open up on their own, and then you can collect the pine nuts and use them in your pesto. I was saying 50 grams of pine nuts and an equal amount of garlic, which is 10 cloves of garlic, which might seem like a lot, equal amount of pine nut to garlic, but my hypothesis is garlic was used extensively. It's pretty high calorie in terms of its size. I think it's like 150 kilocalories for 100 grams or something like that. So we're going about 50 grams of garlic. I estimated that would be about 10 cloves. So we had 54 grams total of garlic, and now I'll just remove the ends and crush them under the side of my knife. It's a pretty efficient way of peeling garlic. So all of this garlic and a lot of these pine nuts are ending up in this mortar and pestle, so I'm gonna have to do it in stages or a little bit at a time, and then I'll put it into a bowl and just try to make sure there's no parts that aren't completely mixed up. So let's pick the basil next, and I think I'm just gonna chop almost all of this basil out. I mean, I should leave some leaves below my chop line, but I wanted, I think, about like 60 leaves. The smell of the basil is fantastic. Whenever I brush it, like when I'm watering it in the morning, it's just such a nice smell to wake up to. We're gonna get our 50 grams of pine nuts. 54 grams of pine nuts. That works. And then we have our olive oil to go with the pesto. And I'm just gonna grind it up a little bit at a time, not try to overdo the mortar because that kind of reduces its efficiency if it's overfilled. The pine nuts themselves have kind of like a creamy texture to them, but it's not a very strong taste, not a strong flavor. I categorized it just as like warm, a warm flavor. But you can see it's a much more time intensive process when you're using a small mortar and pestle than when you just throw everything into a blender and let it rip. It's looking pretty nice. After all that effort, there's that big piece of garlic. Someone's gonna have a nice surprise. It's like the little prize they put in cakes during different festivities, depending on the culture. But in this case, it's just who gets the big chunk of garlic. An Italian insalata, would have consisted of whatever greens were available at the time. So we're going to be mixing a little bit of just a lettuce, some mash. It's just a very mild lettuce, or lettuce-like green that just grows very close to the ground. Cucumber and a red onion. So all that together, I'm just going to use a little bit of everything just to give a nice mix of things. And then we finish it off with a balsamic vinegar. And I'm going to cut them up into cracker-sized bits, which really just means, you know, smaller bits. I don't want them to take over the salad with their size. I'm going to wash them too. Next, I'll do the cucumber. I'm going to quarter the cucumber. So break it into 4 bits and then dice it from there. So we'll do one lengthways. Oops, that's not quite straight. And then again, it's a little bit better. Again. There we go. That'll be a nice hearty salad to go along with the pasta. So you have your rolled up pasta like this. And the original pasta would have been flat, but much larger sheets, almost like lasagna. And then there's whole conversations on when you add the salt. I'm going to add it now. I couldn't really add it earlier because it messes with the look of the stainless steel if I add it immediately. But I'm going to get a nice bit of salt. I'll add that in. And there are no eggs in this, though there are varieties that have egg. And that pretty much does it for the preparation portion. Though we do have a drink to go along with the meal. Italians would always be drinking along with the meal. Not, the full body alcoholic wines that we have today, but definitely a watered down wine. And when I first told my girlfriend that we would be having watered down wine along with the meal, she's like, "Oh, why?" I was like, "Well, the water wasn't necessarily the cleanest during that time. You couldn't really trust it." And she's like, "Okay, well, maybe we just go to the canal and get some water, and we'll actually test if the wine is has enough alcohol in it to kill off whatever's living in the canal." And I decided, you know what? Maybe that's not the best idea. It smells like wine. So I think we'll do half wine and half water to start off. That's about there. I'll go up and add some water to it. And this is probably still stronger after I've added the water. It's probably still stronger than any wine that would have been around in the period. The wine in the period would just have been like not fermented that long. It would have fewer tannins because I think the modern palate prefers tannins, and it'd be fruitier. And of course, there'd be plenty of sediment because it wouldn't be filtered as much. But I don't know what the Italian word is for like cheering. Santé. Yep, that tastes like watered down wine. But we do have some stronger. Where did I put it? Which is balsamic vinegar. So the vinegar region in Italy is around Modena, and balsamic vinegar was first named in like the 1700s, but the whole area was well known for its vinegars, different varieties before the 1700s. So for a vinaigrette, there are 3 components. Component number 1 of the vinaigrette is a mustard. I prefer Dijon mustard. That's just kind of based off my upbringing. And I'm going to take a spoon. That'll be how I measure everything as we go forward. So we're just going to go a ratio of spoons. This is a small spoon. I'll do a second. And then we'll do an equal amount of vinegar. So we'll use the balsamic vinegar. So you think equal amount of each of your kind of acidic items. An equivalent amount as to what's already in the jar of olive oil. So that's like roughly, I don't know, 5 spoonfuls. And then you just give that a nice mix. We'll just throw that all over. Beautiful. All right, now I just need to mix this salad together. Check on the pasta, which should be done. Or at least I need to check on it now. And we'll do a little taste test with a different pesto. But there is the other pesto. So we have 2 different pastas, or same pasta, different sauce.
One is store-bought, one is Colin-bought made.
Exactly. So 2 different pestos. I'll leave you to try them and tell me
Which one is
what
better?
you think. Yeah.
My pasta is crunchy. Why is it crunchy?
It's crunchy?
It's very dente.
Oh. Well, I was mentioning how I didn't want it to be French, so I didn't overcook it. Because the Franks come later.
It's kind of unevenly cooked.
Oh, okay.
Some of it was good and some of it was like how to.
Well, there's more pasta, so I can fix it for dinner, but that's gonna hit my execution score, I'm afraid.
A little bit. Good. Is that the garlic? What's in it?
Garlic, pine nuts, basil, olive oil.
The garlic is super, super strong.
I remember you mentioning how much you love garlic.
I do. I do love garlic. I did, in fact, tell you, like, I wanted my sweat to smell like garlic.
After this?
I wanted so much garlic. Yeah. But it's like very raw.
Yeah.
It's like very raw and like in my face.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely do prefer that to this one.
Okay. So yeah, this is mine as you
But
guessed.
like more basil probably. Like just even out the
That's what I realized
ratios
is
bit.
I think you can see how much darker this one is.
Yeah.
The store-bought one, and then mine is. I mean, I thought I was giving the good ratios. I think the pine nut to garlic ratio is good, but I need to push both of those down a bit so the basil shines a bit more.
Yeah. This is the watered down wine.
Yeah, what do you think of the watered down wine? You can like barely taste the wine, right? There's like no notes of anything.
You know, it's like LaCroix.
But wine?
LaCroix. How do you say? I don't know how to
La
say
Croix,
it.
yeah.
LaCroix, but wine.
Wine flavored La Croix.
It's like hint of wine instead of lime.
How's the salad?
It's good. Ooh, spicy.
The red onion?
Maybe.
Cheers.
What else is in it?
Everything you see there.
Oh,
The two different lettuce, cucumber,
simple.
the vinaigrette. Yeah, very simple salad. If anything, this salad has more green in it than would have been present in the Middle Ages, where they didn't have refrigeration, so you can't like buy your lettuce and then sit in the fridge and keep it
Wait,
good.
so what do you mean more green? What not green would be in it?
Like cucumbers. I mean less green leaves and more like cucumbers, red onions, just vegetables that were ready. So it'd be more like, I don't know, a side, I guess is what people would refer to it.
What would they have eaten salads?
Not that much.
Oh.
It's like you have a vegetable in season and you want to eat it while it's fresh.
So
If you don't have like a full recipe for it,
the cucumber, like
yeah, you might just have a cucumber in like a vinaigrette. Yeah, so to speak.
So you could have just given me a cucumber.
I could have, yeah. But after last week's rating, I'm hoping for a slightly better rating.
Can I rate you now?
Please do.
What am I? Can you give me the category?
Execution.
Okay, leave it 8.
8 on execution.
Yes.
Okay, that's the best I've done so far.
I mean, 1 point off on the garlic ratio, and 1 point off on the pasta.
Yeah.
But that's like the only points I feel like I can take off.
Sweet. And like the salad, all great.
The salad's fine.
Yeah, that's what to expect.
I mean, you know me. I prefer everything to be chopped up real nice.
Yeah, little bits.
But that's just me. I mean, apparently I'd just be eating a cucumber on a stick if I were
living at the time period.
Living there.
Janissary says, GG, well played. Essen, I did a good job. We got a good rating. And then should you serve this to your girlfriend?
I'd eat it. I'd make you remake the pasta. I
mean, I'm going to afterwards.
Like, I would eat this as a regular meal.
Okay. Like every time I made it?
Yeah, pretty.
Abby knows that means a 10.
Assuming you fixed the things.
Yeah.
I would give you a 10.
All right, we got our first 10. We went from a 0 last week to a 10 this week. Big improvement, and that's kind of why I let Abby choose the meal, because I do
maybe
know
like
you.
A 9.5 because of the wine.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I would not drink that watered down wine.
You can see it does still look like wine, but when we taste it, it's just
not.
It's just not.
No.
Next week is the Byzantines.
I don't know what that means.
The Byzantines were just to the east of Italy. For the Byzantines, it is garum, which is a fish sauce. But of course, I'm not eating fish. Neither is Abby. So it just comes in this little bottle, and it's made out of mushrooms instead of fish. And it has a wax seal on it, which is kind of crazy. So I have not tried it out yet. We'll be trying it out on stream, but it calls it an umami-packed liquid seasoning. I'm excited for the Byzantines next week. It's a much more intense recipe, so I'll have to be very focused.